After thus remaining immersed in himself for some time, the Lord opened his eyes and continued, O sage, abandon the habit of apprehending the objects with your mind. The knowers of that self have seen what is worth seeing. What more is there to be seen or not to be seen? Behold the self, be a sword which sunders what is regarded as peace and what is regarded as restlessness. In the previous chapter we became established in Pashanti, the peace that passes understanding. We're not going to get attached to it or notions of it, and we're not going to be concerned with avoiding restlessness either. There's no need for this anymore. Or resorting to just a little extroversion of attention. Listen to what I'm going to say to you. Nothing is gained by merely keeping quiet. The attention is now under control. It is no longer being hijacked all over the place. The attention can rest in itself, or it can engage with notions depending on what the circumstances require. This body is kept alive and active by the life force of Prana. Without that life force, the body is inert. The energy that moves the body is Prana. The intelligence that experiences through all this is consciousness. This consciousness is formless and purer than even the sky. When the relationship between the life force and body ceases, only the life force is separated from the body. Consciousness, which is purer than space, does not perish. In the previous chapter, we had a sublime deepening of the peace of realization. And now we're back to this talk about prana. Prana or life force. And there's clearly a concern here. We often talk about being conscious, but you can also be unconscious. We can say about somebody over there who's lying sprawled on the floor, they're unconscious. Or they're dead, which means they've got no consciousness. And I wonder if this paragraph is wanting to be quite clear about this, because there's no such thing as no consciousness. And so it's talking in terms of prana. This is the difference between a alive body and a dead body. It's not that one is conscious and the other is unconscious, or without consciousness. It's that one is with prana and without prana. So this is a concern of the cognitive process. It's not really one that need bother us, but I think the concern here is not to make consciousness into a notion, in which case it's easier or clearer to talk in terms of prana. A pure mirror reflects what is in front of it, and this is like consciousness. But the reflection is not seen if the mirror is covered with dirt. Even so, though the body is seen, when the prana has left the body, the intelligence does not reflect the objects. This talk of prana isn't particularly helpful. I think in trying to avoid confusion, it creates confusion. And we're told here that even though the body is seen, when the prana has left the body, the intelligence does not reflect the objects. It seems to be talking about a dead body. I'm going to understand this as when the prana has left the body, as meaning when we've abandoned all notions of prana. Because prana can be understood as what draws the attention in one direction or another. It's what hijacks the attention. It's the underlying tendencies which motivate the attention. And when the attention is no longer being motivated unconsciously like that, then we can say the prana has left the body. And we no longer need to even identify or consider the notion of prana. And now talk of prana seems to be dropped all of a sudden. But there is a parallel between prana and consciousness. Prana is the life force, and consciousness is what allows everything to happen. So there's an interesting dichotomy there, which will be mentioned again in the next chapter. But let's get back to consciousness. The consciousness, though infinite and omnipresent, is able to become aware of the movement of the mind and the body. I suppose this is when it identifies with prana. We could say prana is the movement of the mind and the body. When this defect of objectification or conceptualization is removed, that itself shines as a supreme being. So in other words, when we're no longer identifying with prana, when we're no longer identifying with conceptualization, it is itself the creator Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Indra, the sun, the moon, and the Supreme Lord. Some of these divinities, like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are not deceived by the cosmic illusion. They are indeed parts of the infinite consciousness, sharing its true nature, like red-hot iron, which shares the nature of fire. However, none of these has actually been created by the infinite consciousness, and none of these exists apart from it. These are no more than notions, some notions being more dense than the others. It is impossible to describe the extent of such notions which have arisen in ignorance. In a manner of speaking, the Supreme Being, the infinite consciousness, is the father of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and others. That infinite consciousness alone is fit to be adored and worshipped. However, there is no use inviting it for the worship. No mantras are of any use in its worship, for it is immediate, closest one's own self, and hence does not need to be invited. It is the omnipresent self of all. The realization of this infinite consciousness, which is totally effortless, is alone the best form of worship. And it's the only form of worship. Any other kind of worship is nonsensical. In other words, everything is notional. Even Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, they all arise in this awareness, which is the awareness in which this video is arising.